Revealed, 3 spine-chilling true horror stories of sinister endings and cursed summer nights. The night was as thick as the looming dread that enveloped Sarah as she sank into her worn-out couch. The summer air seeped through her open windows, making the shadows in her living room dance like specters of her past. Alarms blared in her head, but she pushed them aside, telling herself this was safe, this was home. 2 rooms down, her children were at a friend's, a brief reprieve from her responsibilities. But when her phone buzzed, a spine-chilling chill raced down her spine. Texts from an unknown number began flooding in, detailing her day in harrowing accuracy. "Careful at the diner tonight, Sarah." The walls seemed to pulse with her racing heartbeat. Surely, this had to be a joke, a prank from bored local teens. She brushed it off with a nervous laugh, but dread pooled in her stomach as she took a sip of her lukewarm tea, the taste bitter and unwelcoming. Later that night, the atmosphere thickened, each creak of the house unnerving her like a lingering reminder of past fears. Outside, a low chant rolled from the darkness of the alley, its rhythm unsettling. A cold sweat trickled down her spine. It must be neighbors gathering, she convinced herself, holding tightly to the shimmer of normalcy. With a cautious breath, she crept outside, heart hammering. The alley was empty, only shadows staring back at her. But a flicker from her neighbor's lawn caught her attention. Strange symbols twisted grotesquely in the moonlight. Curiosity sparked momentarily before she dismissed it. Just another eccentricity in this suburban facade. The heaviness in her chest grew tighter as sleepless hours dragged into the morning. When her children burst through the front door, joyful laughter barely masked the start of her newfound paranoia. She resolved to tell the police about the texts and symbols, but their dismissive laughter stung more than she expected. "Overreacting," they murmured. A trapdoor of fear opened beneath her. What if the threats were real? The thought sent her mind spiraling, igniting defiance in her heart. Days faded into a haze of heightened anxiety. Every rustle in the bushes, every flicker of movement outside made her pulse race. Then came the day her children returned home to find her vanished. Their panic echoed in the empty spaces of their home, igniting urgent whispers around the neighborhood. They searched, fueled by growing dread, and unveiled sinister family secrets buried beneath friendly facades. Unraveled tales floated just beneath the surface, clandestine gatherings under the guise of block parties, whispers of the unspoken summer shadows. Time warped as Sarah found herself wandering deeper into an untouched part of the neighborhood no one dared speak about. The shadows seemed to breathe, alive with tension. That's when she spotted him, a familiar figure wrapped in darkness. Recognition turned her blood to ice. In a heartbeat, she realized she was intertwined in a story that bound their pasts, a connection woven with the curse of the summer shadows, a relic of the town's buried dread. She was not just a frightened mother, she was a thread in a web spun by ignorance and fear. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. A whispering breeze swept through the alley, brushing past her like the breath of someone behind her. She froze, heart pounding, a question burning through her mind. What was she truly running from? A shadow slipped through the trees, and the weight of realization sank in. In this town, where smiles masked betrayal, who could she trust? What was the price she would have to pay for the truth? The night grew cold, a heartbeat echoing in the silence, waiting. The silence draped around Sarah like a heavy cloak, stifling her thoughts. She turned slowly, feeling each soft grunt of the grass beneath her feet as she navigated deeper into the darkness. The flickering streetlights faded behind her, impotent against the thickening shadows. The familiar figure lingered just at the edge of her vision. Each time she blinked, he seemed closer. "Why are you here?" Sarah's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. The chill in the air danced with an unseen presence, wrapping around her like fingers gripping her throat. The figure stepped into the faint moonlight, revealing only enough for his piercing gaze to hold her captive. "You know why?" His voice was a whisper, but it rolled like thunder in her ears, that word "no" slashed through her fog. Seconds stretched into minutes as recognition dawned, gnawing at her resolve. He was a part of the town's buried lore, woven into the stories best left untold. The summer shadows had claimed many, and as she stood there, she understood. She was next in line. Panic surged within her. "I have to find my children." She broke away from his gaze and took off toward the sounds of murmuring from her neighborhood. Each footfall pounded against the quickening pulse of the night, each step drawing her closer to her twisted sanctuary. As she rounded the corner, she stumbled into the heart of the neighborhood, alive with laughter and chatter, ironic, given the palpable tension. Yet, something felt different tonight. The faces were too familiar, the gleaming smiles veiled with something darker. She could feel the eyes on her, shadows were moving, her heart raced, yet no one seemed to notice. "Mom!" A small voice pierced through the noise, sending warmth through her. "Her kids." She darted toward the sound, weaving between clusters of adults engaged in strange conversations. "Where have you been?" Their worried expressions screamed of fear she couldn't bear to face. "We thought we lost you." Her son cried, innocence pure in a place thick with dread. From behind her, the figure appeared again, weaving in and out of sight like a thread pulled through darkness. "They must know," he hissed, his breath chilling her neck. "It's time you all learned the truth. Stay away from us." Sarah spun to confront him, shielding her children with her body. Her instincts had kicked in, she would protect them at all costs. The adults around began to shift, whispering urgent words laced with conspiratorial intent. She strained to catch a snippet of the conversation. "The ritual. You can't let them take her, it will all start again." The words trickled in and out, chilling her to the marrow. Just as fear began to tether itself around her heart, the ground shook beneath them. A low rumble echoed up from beneath the pavement, splitting the gathering in two. Sarah's breath quickened. The children clung tightly to her. Panic erupted, laughter turned to screams as shadows swirled and writhed. "Mom!" They shouted amidst the chaos, but a deep, haunting chant began to rise, repeating over and over like a broken pendulum. Each echo felt like fingers clawing at her sanity, drawing her closer to the truth buried within the neighborhood's facade. The figure stretched out a hand, beckoning her into the womb of darkness surrounding the gathering. The ground beneath him twisted as they all stood on the edge of something ancient and unholy. "What are you doing?" Sarah screamed, desperation slicing through her voice. "Facing our past before it swallows us all whole," he replied, his face twisted in shadows yet contorted with fear. As she wrestled with the decision to plunge into the unknown or flee with her children, she felt her memories flickering, bright moments dimmed by terror. Was this the end of a cycle, or merely the beginning? As the chant reached a fever pitch, Sarah gripped her children tighter. "Run!" she shouted, but would it be enough? The very fabric of their lives seemed to rip as the shadows whispered promises of a truth she might never be ready to hear. In that terrifying instant, she knew they could not escape. What waited in the darkness was far worse than what loomed in the light. The shadows were closing in, and as they shifted, Sarah questioned, "What waits for us in the heart of this nightmare?" The answer danced in the air, waiting to ensnare them all. The world spun wildly, shadows twisting around Sarah like tendrils reaching for her soul. She could hear the chant climbing higher, a crescendo of despair that resonated in the pit of her stomach. The figure glided closer, unyielding, and her brain screamed to run. But where? The streets had become a maze of monstrous familiarity, and her children were glued to her side, their tiny hands trembling. "Mom, they're all staring," her daughter whispered, eyes wide with terror. Sarah's heart sank as she glanced at the crowd. The adults, friends, and neighbors were eerily fixated on an unseen center, their expressions devoid of warmth. Stay close, she urged, yanking them deeper into the fray, but it felt like swimming against a tide. The whispers escalated around her. Words like sacrifice and rebirth echoed, setting her pulse racing. The ground shook violently again, and a fissure cracked open, releasing a choking cloud of dust. In the chaos, Sarah felt the grasp of the shadows tightening around them. Mom! The figure loomed closer, his gaze cutting through the haze of terror. You can't hide from him. You can't hide from what you really are. Get away from us. She was screaming now, her voice raw and desperate. Panic clawed at her throat, pressing down on her chest like a weight. A jagged scream split the air. A woman from the crowd buckled and fell, clutching her chest. The murmurs shifted, rising into a frenzied cacophony. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She shielded her children, but the feeling of dread was palpable now, like the thickest fog creeping into their lungs. Look! Her son shouted, pointing. Sarah followed his shaking finger to the fissure. Within the darkness, shapes were writhing, silhouettes twisting in a grotesque dance. Faces flashed in and out, people she recognized from the neighborhood. Their eyes were wide and terrified, gazing back at her with an urgency that chilled her to the core. A startled hush fell over the crowd. That moment of stillness, broken only by the low rumble beneath them, felt sentient, as though the earth itself was alive and breathing, listening, waiting. Join us, the figure hissed, extending his hand once more. Embrace your legacy. Never. Sarah spat, feeling the heat of her defiance spark within her. But her voice wavered as uncertainty crept in. Could she trust this looming darkness? Hadn't she spent her whole life running from truths locked away in her heart? Then she noticed something horrific. The others were starting to sway, their bodies moving in rhythm with the chant, drawn like moths to a flame. One by one, faces turned to hers, their eyes compelling and flat, as if they had already succumbed to the dark promise of the shadows. Mom, we have to go. Her daughter whimpered, clutching her tighter. But the ground shook even more, threatening to swallow everything whole. The darkness writhed like a serpent, eager for more. Not without the truth. The figure roared, a desperate fury weaving through his voice. The crowd seemed to fall silent, their focus shifting to Sarah, their collective gaze boring into her very being. In that moment, Sarah realized the truth she feared most wasn't the darkness itself, it was what awaited her if she didn't confront it. Her breath quickened. Okay, we'll talk. Just let us get out of this nightmare. The shadows peeled back slightly, revealing a path lit by an unnatural glow. But even as the way opened, a sinister laughter erupted from the depths, burrowing into her bones. Flee if you wish, the figure said, a hint of malice underlying his tone. But remember, the truth won't just hunt you down. It will devour you whole. With her heart racing, Sarah hesitated. The chant grew louder, drowning out her last shred of resolve. Should she risk everything, face the truth, or run and hope to escape the insatiable darkness that was beckoning? As the shadows surged again, blurring around faith and fear, she knew she needed a plan. Each heartbeat echoed like a ticking clock in her ears, counting down to her choice. What if the only way out was deeper in? The night thickened with uncertainty, and as shadows encroached, a chill whispered in her ear, run while you can before it all starts again. The air felt electric, crackling with anticipation as Sarah inhaled the metallic taste of fear. Time stretched, and the shadows seemed to pulse, alive with a hunger that echoed her own racing heart. Holding her children close, she felt their warmth ground her, a fragile thread of reality amidst the swirling phantoms. Mom, please? Her son's voice trembled, cutting through the anguished chant. His fear ignited hers anew. She couldn't let them become part of this madness. The figure's intention was clear, it wanted them to surrender, to accept a fate they didn't understand. But where was the truth hiding? What could she confront that would free them? Fumbling through the haze of her thoughts, she led the children toward the flickering path. Each step felt heavier as the shadowy tendrils reached out, grazing her skin with icy fingers. A thrill surged through her, a mix of dread and adrenaline churning her survival instinct. "Follow me," she urged with a force she didn't feel. The shadows recoiled slightly as if they sensed her defiance, momentarily halted in their advance. The glow in front of them twisted and flickered like a dying flame, an alien light that beckoned from beyond a threshold she couldn't quite name. Behind, the crowd swayed, their collective breath a rhythmic tide that echoed against the walls of certainty she'd built in their lives. "Stay close." Her voice faltered, strained with urgency, as she pushed them forward. "Mom," what if her daughter began, but Sarah cut her off, panic gnawing at her stomach. "No what ifs. Just hold my hand." The chant rose higher, morphing into a cacophony that rang in her ears, drowning out her thoughts. The path widened, leading into a deeper darkness veined with that unsettling light. Her breath came quickly, her instinct screaming to retreat, but she pressed on. Again, that figure loomed just ahead, a wall of malice and promise. "You think you can escape by running?" he taunted. "The truth isn't a place, Sarah. It's a confrontation, your downfall if you deny it." She caught a glimpse of the faces behind him, the frightened faces of her neighbors now twisted with hopelessness, all drawn to the abyss. A realization pierced through her fear, they were there because they had chosen to be. Could she, too, risk it, embrace some dark truth they had found? "Mom." Her daughter's voice, a soft bell, rings through the chaos. "Look." A form emerged from the shadows, a woman, her features drawn tight with terror, cried out in a whisper. "He's coming for you." Her eyes darted towards the figure, pleading for mercy, for escape. Sarah's heart raced. Who was this woman? A warning? A lure? Before Sarah could react, shadows wrapped around the woman, pulling her back into the darkness, her screams swallowed by the rising chant. The depth of panic surged within Sarah as she tightened her grip on her children. They were next unless she acted. "I won't do this," Sarah shouted, gathering her courage. "We will not accept. We have our own power." The shadows pulsed violently, rejecting her resolve. A deep rumble surged through the ground as the air thickened, pressing down like a heavy weight. Still, she fought, the glow ahead flickering with a flicker of hope. But what awaited her in that light? Her thoughts raced, weighing the options: confront the darkness or dive deeper into it. "Let us go," she shouted, yanking her children towards the glow, hearts pounding as the shadows screeched in fury behind them. But as they crossed into the glow, she felt an icy grip encircle her ankle, a final attempt by the darkness. Her heart sank. What would she discover there? Just as she felt herself being pulled back, an echoing laughter erupted, shaking the very foundation of her sanity. "Welcome to your truth, Sarah." The moment hung heavily, charged with both terror and anticipation, before plunging into an abyss of unknown horrors. The deeper they went, the more she wondered, could the light be salvation, or was it simply another trap veiled in false hope? And in that uncertainty, she heard it, the soft whisper of a familiar voice in her ear: "You can't hide from who you are not anymore." The light enveloped them, wrapping around Sarah and her children like a protective cocoon. For just a moment, the oppressive weight of the shadows lifted. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart racing as the warmth seeped into her bones. But the reprieve was short-lived. The bright glow began to flicker, like a failing bulb about to plunge them back into darkness. "Stay close," she warned, tightly gripping the hands of her children as they staggered through the fading light. Shadows crept at the edges, whispering, laughing, taunting their every step. The alien voice echoed in her mind: "Your truth awaits." Suddenly, the light solidified ahead, revealing a twisted pathway lined with grotesque images. Faces twisted in anguish clawed at Sarah from the walls, their mouths opening in silent screams. She stumbled but managed to keep her children upright, pushing against the urge to bolt back into the shadows from which they had come. "Mom, what are those?" her son asked, fear flooding his wide eyes. nearly brimming with tears. "They're just illusions," she lied, but her own voice trembled, betraying the certainty she tried to claim. She couldn't let them see her fear, they must believe. As they walked further, the laughter of the figure grew louder, swirling like a wind that bit into her skin. "You think you can outpace your fate?" it echoed. "You've brought them here to witness it, haven't you?" "No!" she shouted, recoiling from the truth buried in those words. The shadows writhed in response, inching closer, intertwining with the light in a grotesque dance. As if to prove her wrong, the pathway twisted, and the faces began to morph. She recognized the features of her friends, her neighbors. They offered her knowing gazes, eyes wide with despair, trapped in a surreal performance playing out before her. Each one a victim of their own choices, each one seemingly aware of her journey. "Mom!" her daughter shrieked, pointing to a figure materializing from the other side of the light, an ashen man, his face a mask of torment. It was her husband, distorted and terrifying, his voice tearing through the air. "You led them here, Sarah. Face it, you can't escape me." Sarah's heart dropped. She had thought him lost in the accident, a terrible tragedy now haunting her mind and the very air around them. "Stop!" she screamed, shielding her children, feeling adrenaline pulse through her. "You're not real." But as she shouted, she recognized the truth being revealed. Everything leading to this moment, every decision, every lie to herself, it was all crashing down. The figure only laughed, a chilling sound that slithered into her mind. "You have chained yourself, Sarah. Your power lies in your acceptance. You brought them into this." "Mom, he's lying, right?" her son asked, his voice shaky as he glanced at her. The shadows coalesced and the path darkened. In that moment, the impending dread of despair consumed her. Did she actually have power? Had she led them here through her own hidden truths? "Step closer, Sarah." Just a little more, the figure beckoned, his voice honeyed but dripped with malice. "The truth will set you free or destroy you. Choose." Sarah's pulse drummed in her ears. The shadows closed in, those tormented faces screaming louder now, each vying for her attention. Her children squeezed her hands tighter, their fear a pulsing heartbeat against her own, gifting her the strength she thought she lacked. But a new presence made her turn, a glimmer behind the darkness. Just beyond the grotesque images, there was another light, softer, inviting. Was it real? In that split second, Sarah felt the shadows tug at her again, that icy dread creeping back. Her heart raced. Could she abandon the truth the figure taunted her with? "Choose now." It roared, the walls trembling as if the world itself would collapse around them. The ground quaked beneath her, her children cried out, and the faces of the damned loomed closer. But then, she caught a glimpse of that other light, the hint of salvation or another trick. As the shadows clawed at her feet, Sarah felt the weight of her decisions hang heavy in the air. With one last scream echoing in her mind, she moved forward, hoping to pierce through the gathering gloom to grasp at that fleeting light. Would she find the salvation she desperately sought, or would it all be swallowed into the darkness? The answer was blurry, and as she stepped into that light, her mind screamed one final question: is it too late to turn back? The light was warm but dim, flickering like a faulty flashlight in a basement, casting long shadowy shapes that darted and twisted like frenzied spirits. The moment Sarah stepped forward, it enveloped her and the children. For a heartbeat, it felt like salvation, a sanctuary from nightmares clawing at their backs. Yet, the deeper they traveled, the more it felt like a trap, tightening around them like a noose. The path branched ahead, two routes stretching into the unknown. The soft glow flickered at her left, while an ominous darkness shrouded the right. Sarah instinctively wanted to move left, towards the flicker of comfort, but the shadows on the right began to whisper. They murmured her name, a serpent-like hiss that coiled tightly around her thoughts. "Mom!" her daughter cried, pointing at the darkened path. "Something's down there. I see eyes." "What do you mean?" Sarah turned, scanning the gloom. Her heart raced. There's nothing there. Look, her son insisted, trembling against her side, they're watching us. They want to take us. The shadows reacted to her children's fear, swirling, hungry for it. The laughter echoed again, gleeful and haunting. Fools! You think you have a choice? They can sense your weakness. Panic surged in Sarah, an icy wave that paralyzed her thoughts. Was it true? Did the shadows feed on their fear? She had to keep her children safe. But the relentless whispers of the figure ghosted through her mind, taunting her. You cannot protect them, you are the cause of this torment. Stay close. She shouted, as if that would banish the darkness encroaching on her family. But her voice trembled, a fragile thread of courage. The left path flickered again, more enticing, drawing her steps towards it, but the darkness pulsed with an unknown force. In an instant, she felt something cold brush against her skin. It was as if an unseen hand reached for her, grasping, pulling. No! She gasped, yanking her children away from the dark edge. The laughter erupted, bells of despair chiming, ringing in her ears. Choose, Sarah, choose. I can set you free. Time warped, stretching agonizingly as she wrestled with the choices laying before her. She could feel the pressure from both sides, the flickering light whispering solace, the shadows promising power. Her heart beat furiously in her chest. Come on, Mom, we have to go. Her son tugged at her hand, desperation in his voice. Please. The shadows spun closer, morphing into silent figures, horrific stewards of the darkness. Some wore familiar faces, with hollow eyes staring blankly. Others were grotesque, featureless beings that instilled dread deeper than any nightmare. They reached for her with fingers that blurred into the darkness, demanding her allegiance. No. I want tea. She screamed, stepping back, but the children were already stepping toward the flickering light. This way. Mom, this way. But the closer they got, the more the light flickered. She felt the cracks forming under her feet, torment echoing around her. What kind of choice was this? Would they be saved or suffer forever? Mom! Her daughter cried out, we can't let them catch us. Sarah's mind screamed in chaos, a war between light and dark, between false hopes and tangible fears. And then, a shadow lunged forward, a twisting mass that lunged with unsettling speed, reaching for her children. Sarah recoiled, heart racing, a visceral dread clawing at her stomach. No! Never! With a roar, the shadows surged in a single tide, a wave of malice crashing toward them. They stood at the precipice, the light flickering desperately, fading in the storm. In that moment, something inside Sarah ignited a fierce protector. Run! She shouted, pushing her kids ahead. She was terrified, but they had to survive, but her cry only fed the darkness, their laughter swelling, drowning her resolve. You'll never escape, surrender to it. Just as the shadows closed in, something broke in the air, a heartbeat, a vibration that felt familiar. The flicker of light dimmed, then surged a blinding flash illuminating everything around them, then silence enveloped them. Was it too late? Was there still hope lingering just beyond the darkness? Sarah's heart raced, and as her vision returned, she felt an unsettling dread creep back in. What awaited them in the depths of that light? Mom? Her children whimpered, lost but hopeful. Sarah clutched their hands tighter, staring into the brilliance that blazed ahead yet flickering faintly, unsure if it was the end or a sinister new beginning. What could lie beneath the surface of the light? The brightness surged, a wild blaze that enveloped them, but within it, a shadow persisted. It lingered like a stain on Sarah's vision, a dark reminder that something was still lurking, waiting for its moment. Stay close, she ordered, her voice barely a whisper now, choked with anxiety. The intense blaze felt deceptive, and she could hardly trust the glowing sanctuary. It pulsed as if it had a heartbeat. The children clutched her, their small hands trembling. She could feel their heartbeats racing against her skin, a frantic symphony of fear that echoed in her head. They stepped forward, into the throbbing luminosity, but something churned in Sarah's gut. What if this was just where the shadows wanted them? What if being drawn toward the light was part of their cruel game? "Mom, I don't like it here," her daughter murmured, glancing back at the darkening path, her expression a mix of fear and longing. "We have to keep going," Sarah replied, forcing a calmness into her voice, even as dread curled around her throat. She urged them forward, wondering if they were truly escaping or merely wandering into a more sinister trap. Suddenly, the brilliance flickered violently, swallowed by a thick fog that rolled in without warning. It enveloped them, suffocating and cold. Sarah felt her heart plunge. If they were caught in this haze, what sinister form would emerge? "Mom!" Her son cried out, his voice filling with panic. "I can't see. Just hold tight, okay?" She reached for him, but the moment she turned, she realized her daughter had let go of her hand. "Mom!" she wailed, her voice filled with despair. With a lurch, Sarah spun around, eyes wide, searching for the smallest figure. Then she saw her suddenly illuminated by a beam that broke through the fog, revealing her daughter standing in the center of a swirling mass of shadows that crept closer, their fingers stretching like gnarled branches. "No! Get away from her!" Sarah screamed, her body surging forward, but it felt like wading as if underwater, each step a battle against this heavy, unnatural air. "Help me!" her daughter cried, eyes wide with terror, as the shadows reached for her. Just then, a shrill shriek pierced the air, not from the shadows but from the very depths of that blinding light. The shriek morphed into laughter, a seductive, frenzied giggle that sent a cold chill down Sarah's spine. "Sarah, let her be!" a voice called out from the glow. It was soothing yet malevolent, wrapping itself around her thoughts like smoke. "Join us instead, she'll be all right." "No!" she wouldn't let them take one more piece of her family. "Not now, not ever." With a surge of strength fueled by desperation, Sarah grabbed her son tighter and leaped forward, toward her daughter, reaching out, willing to risk everything to pull her back. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, as if Sarah's determination had stung them. "Don't listen!" they hissed, voices overlapping, filled with resentment. "You're too weak." But her daughter didn't seem weak, not then. There was a spark in her eyes, a fight that was impossible to ignore. In that moment, Sarah understood the light wasn't just a sanctuary, it was a battleground. "Together!" she shouted, feeling a warmth begin to bloom in her chest. "We can fight back." As their hands connected, a jolt surged through them, illuminating the nightmare unfurling around them. The shadows twisted, contorting and shrieking, the laughter turning shrill and desperate. They stood firm, united, channeling their fear into resolve. The shadows hissed, recoiling in agony, yet their whispers still clawed at Sarah's mind. Would this be enough to break the grip of the horror they faced? With every moment, the grip of the darkness weakened. Yet there was still that taunting voice lingering on the edges of her consciousness, sowing seeds of doubt. "Don't you want to be free, Sarah? This is only the beginning." The light pulsed brighter, blinding her momentarily, but when it faded, Sarah gasped. They weren't in the same place anymore. The solid path had shattered into fragments, a swirling abyss of color and darkness beneath their feet. Below them, she could see the shadows writhing, more twisted than before, forming faces that looked eerily familiar. Friends, family, victims of their own darkness. They had only just begun to scratch the surface of this twisted reality. What would they uncover next? Was their hope merely a flicker against the tide of despair threatening to engulf them? They braced themselves, heartbeats pounding, ready to fight for their survival, unaware of the chilling revelation that awaited them just beyond the fraying edges of light. What truth lies in the heart of this chaos? The abyss pulsed beneath them, surreal shades of color swirling into a vortex of despair. Sarah's heart raced as she fought to steady her breath. The momentary light had revealed more than just the twisted shadows, it had unveiled a reality where hope was suffocatingly thin. "Mom, I'm scared." Her son tugged at her sleeve, his small body shaking. "I know, honey. We'll get through this," she whispered, though her own voice trembled, betraying the calm facade she tried to maintain. The faces within the shadows shifted, morphing into gruesome visages. Each one tugged at her heart, a reminder of lives once vibrant, now consumed by darkness. "Look!" her daughter shouted, pointing to a faint glimmer at the edge of the abyss. "There's something over there." Sarah squinted, unable to discern what it was amid the chaos. But something in her compelled her to move toward it, a flicker of hope dancing at the fringes of despair. The children followed, the bond of their fear pulling them close. As they approached, the glimmer seemed to pulse in rhythm with their hearts. It shimmered like the last star in a dying sky. But the shadows writhed in protest, claws of darkness lunging outwards, trying to snatch them back into its depths. "Don't look." Sarah felt the tug of panic rising within her, forcing her to shield her children's eyes. She struggled against the impending dread while inching closer to that distant glimmer. "Mom, I can see it." Her daughter gasped, eyes wide. "It's beautiful. Don't let it trick you." Sarah's instincts screamed. It felt like a trap, the allure of it a cruel tease against their desperate plight. But before she could voice her fear, the glimmer erupted into a cascade of brilliant light, and within that blinding radiance, a figure emerged human-shaped, yet otherworldly. "Welcome back, Sarah," it spoke, the voice warm yet eerie, echoing in the air like a soft melody stained with sadness. Sarah's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" The figure's face blurred, shifting like smoke on the verge of dissipating. "I am a guide, a keeper of those who lost their way." "Where's my husband?" she demanded, a surge of hope and fury clashing in her chest. "What have you done with him?" "Beyond here lies the truth of each shadow, each face you see," the figure whispered, its gaze piercing through her defenses. "Only by facing the darkness can the way be opened. Embrace it." The shadow shrieked, rushing forward as if the figure's words ignited their fury. The air crackled with an electric energy, pulling at the children, threatening to tear them apart from her. "Together!" Sarah screamed, gripping their hands tighter, feeling their warmth, their unyielding spirit. "We can face it. Whatever it is." But as they huddled together, Sarah's thoughts spiraled. What truth awaited them? What sacrifices would they need to make? And who was the figure that claimed to guide them? Was it really a rescuer or another puppet of the darkness? Just then, the ground beneath them began to shake. The fragments they stood on quaked violently, shadows howling with rage. "Let go of your light," the figure urged. "And you can learn to control the darkness." "No!" Sarah's defiance roared. "We want to be controlled." The figure faltered, revealing a flicker of surprise, but in that instant, a shadow lunged forward, its icy fingers curling around her ankle. "Help!" she screamed, terror slicing through her like a knife. The echoes of the shadows erupted into laughter, a cacophony of torment. Gripping her children tighter, she felt their fear entwining with her own. "Mom, Mom," her son cried, their world spiraling into chaos, driven by sheer desperation. Sarah forced herself forward, propelling through the chaos. "We're not losing anyone else." As they dove towards the light, she felt the shadows claw at her skin, their cries piercing her heart with doubt. The warmth of the glimmer ahead pulled her like a lifeline against the suffocating waves of darkness. Just as they reached for the light, a force yanked them back. The laughter erupted louder, and for a brief moment, Sarah was thrown into shadowed memories. A child's laughter, a soft voice, but which was a memory and which was a trap? What awaited them in the light? Would the truth set them free, or would it bind them forever? As the darkness clawed at her, Sarah felt a surge of cold engulf her body. The shadows twisted and churned, and it was impossible to tell up from down. The world around them warped into a frenetic blur, every desperate heartbeat counting down her chances of escape. "Hold on. Just hold on," she shouted, her voice swallowed by the cacophony. She couldn't think straight. Her eyes flooded with tears, blurring the gleaming light ahead. "Mom, it hurts." Her son gasped, his small hand slipping slightly from hers. "Don't let go. Don't let go." Panic propelled her words, and she pulled him back with every ounce of strength. The figure's eyes followed her, almost too piercing, too attached to be benign. "Let the darkness in," it whispered, its voice slithering into her mind. "Embrace the pain. It will set you free." "Shut up." Sarah screamed at it, squeezing her children's hands tighter, feeling every fragile breath trembling at her side. She couldn't let them go. Not again. With one mighty heave, she yanked them toward the glimmer. The shadows screeched, the force of their cries wrapping around her like a choking vine. The light flickered, a heartbeat amidst the grasp of shadows, but it pulsed with determination to a promise of safety, a beacon of hope. As they surged forward, her heart pounded louder than the chaos. Each step felt like a small victory, carving a path through despair. The warmth of the light danced, illuminating fragments of what seemed like long-lost memories, fleeting images of laughter and joy that melted into a reservoir of sadness. "Mom!" Her daughter cried out, a flicker of hope crossing her voice. "We're almost there." Cold dread gripped Sarah's chest. "Don't look back. We need to keep moving." But even as she said it, the tang of horror buzzed through her veins. She wanted so desperately to glance back, to see what was chasing them, what remained entrenched in that darkness. The ground quaked again, and suddenly a gaping chasm opened beneath their feet. A swirl of shadows beckoned from below, hungry for fresh souls, promising liberation through sacrifice. "Mom! I can't!" Her son cried out as the chasm pulled at them, threatening to devour their last chance of escape. "Step! Just step toward the light," she urged, wishing her own fear didn't shake her voice. "Choose." The figure boomed, its voice echoing ominously. "Choose the light or join the darkness." With a fierce determination, Sarah felt a new wave of courage surge within her. This was family, this was survival. "We choose." She swept her arms wide, making a protective shield around her children. "We choose each other." The shadows roared in outrage. They clawed at her, sharp and relentless. Sarah's foot slipped, and she stumbled, the abyss yawning wide, eager for her descent. She inhaled sharply, forcing herself to stand. She would not let the darkness win. Just then, a burst of light erupted from the depths of the shadows, illuminating their surroundings. Chilling laughter rang out, swirling around them like a haunting melody. "False hope." The figure howled, its shape blurring into an unholy mass. "You cannot escape your fate. You must decide." "What fate?" Her voice dripped with defiance. "Our fate is ours to make." With a final leap towards the light, they fell into the embrace of brilliance. A wave of warmth engulfed them, but not before she heard the shadows, restless, still whispering her name. In that moment, everything changed. The light faded even as they reached it, twisting into a dark reflection of their hopes. They were no longer merely fleeing, they were stepping into something unimaginable. But what awaited them on the other side? Would they find solace, or something far more sinister? The ground beneath them trembled, pulsing a new rhythm, as deep echoes warned once more. Nothing is ever as it seems. The light dissolved around them, and Sarah felt a disorienting shift like stepping through a curtain. Suddenly, they stood in an expanse that felt both familiar and utterly alien. The eerie glow returned, illuminating a landscape twisted by shadows. "Where are we?" her son asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know." Sarah felt a cold wave of fear wash over her, but she squeezed their hands tighter. "Stay together. They looked around, taking in their new surroundings. The echoes of laughter that rang through the shadows sounded so familiar, duplicating something buried deep in her memories. Figures flitted at the edges of the light, faces half-formed, whispering secrets just out of reach. "Mom, there's something wrong," her daughter whimpered. "I can feel it." "Remember our promise," Sarah said fiercely, igniting a flicker of determination within. "We choose each other." But as she focused on her children, they began to flicker too, like images from an old movie reel fading away. Panic surged. "No! Don't leave me! Mom!" They reached for her, voices echoing with fear, then became muffled, indistinct. "Stay with me!" she yelled, the shadows tightening around them as if to choke her resolve. Their faces distorted further, melting into shadows that grinned mockingly. Viral whispers penetrated her mind like daggers. "Embrace your fate," they hissed. "This is where you belong." Sarah's heart raced. With every second, the shadows grew bolder, their hold tightening as they pulled her in. "I'm not afraid." The strength of her voice surprised even her. Refusing to yield, she focused on the warmth she felt emanating from her children, willing it to shatter the suffocating darkness, but the figure from before emerged, face warped with mockery. "You think you can defy the truth? You will see." "No!" she cried, but doubt crept in like fog, saturating her thoughts. What if everything she fought against was true? What if she truly belonged here? "Mom, help us!" they called, drowning in shadows as their brightness dimmed. Everything hinged on this moment. Every choice she made would seal their fate. "No!" roared Sarah, heart pounding. That word ignited a fire in her. "I choose love." The air shifted violently, causing the distorted reality to splinter. Light poured in from unseen places, pushing the shadows back. "You won't take my family. We are stronger than this." With fierce determination, she yanked her children close. Light surged again, pure and brilliant, filling every corner of her soul. The shadows screamed, their grasp faltering. The laughter grew frantic, the darkness swirling as if terrified. "Mom, over there!" shouted her son, pointing toward a doorway shimmering faintly against the shadows, a path leading to reality. Pulsing light danced around them, empowering Sarah. "Together!" she shouted, their hands clasped. They surged forward, adrenaline pushing through fear. As they reached the doorway, shadows lashed out, clawing at her, a final desperate bid to pull them back. Sarah cried out but gripped her children tighter. "We will be free." With one last push, they broke through the veil and the world shifted once more. Bright sunlight enveloped them, the air was fresh, filled with birdsong. They stumbled onto the familiar sidewalk outside their home, the soft rustle of leaves overhead calming their fears. Tears of relief streamed down Sarah's cheeks, and she pulled her children into an embrace, the warmth settling their racing hearts. They were alive, together, on the other side of horrors. "Mom, we did it!" her daughter exclaimed, eyes sparkling, even amidst remnants of shadow lingering just beyond their peripheral vision. "Yes, we did." Sarah gazed at her thriving neighborhood, the people, the laughter, the life. She realized something miraculous. The darkness wouldn't fully disappear, but she could face it, together. In that moment, Sarah knew she would protect them at all costs. She couldn't erase the past, but she would write a new story, a stronger, braver one. As they walked home, hand in hand, Sarah felt her heart swell with hope. The shadows might always be waiting, but they were no longer a threat. They held the truth, a truth she would embrace, no matter the cost. This was their moment of liberation, and as the sun dipped low in the sky, painting everything in warm, golden light, she knew they would never stand alone. The end of one nightmare. The beginning of their journey. If you've enjoyed this ride, you need to subscribe immediately to catch our next compelling stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Let us get the word out. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let us hear your thoughts. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.